I will be forever the myth.
You're the king of kings, Arnold.
There's always a pecking order. The little packers never mess with the big packers. So I'm a rooster, and he's a chicken, so to speak.
All right, welcome back to the Bodybuilding Legends Podcast, and I have three real legends with me today. I have 1983 Mr. Olympia Samir Bannout joining us, Rich Gaspari, who was one of the top pro bodybuilders in the 1980s and the first Arnold Classic winner, and of course we have the great Lee Haney, 8-time Mr. Olympia, and we are here to talk about the recent passing of Eddie Giuliani, who was a mainstay of Gold's Gym and World's Gym, and one of the real icons in the sport. And Ed just passed away a couple of days ago at the age of 87. And Lee, thank you for coming up with this subject. And it was your idea to do this because you guys all knew Eddie training at World's Gym, and he was such a great guy. And when he passed away a couple of days ago, I noticed all the notices on Facebook. Everybody had great things to say about him because he was just such a good person.
Yeah, Eddie was, man. Eddie was incredible. And my first time meeting Eddie as a youngster coming out to California.
What year was it? What was it? What year was it?
1983.
Okay.
1983, 1983. And I recall once I walked into the gym, Eddie was there at the desk. I mean, he greeted me, and one of the first things he said after he saw me, he looked at me, just checked me out. And then he said, "Joe, come and check out this kid," Joe Gold. "Come and take a look at him." And so Joe came out of the office. And then as he and Eddie were standing there, Joe circled me. He walked around in a circle and he looked, and then he stepped back and said, "Okay, kid, pull up your pants leg." And I pull up my pants leg. He looked at us on my calves and said, "You're going places." And then he went back into the office and closed the door. But Eddie, man, he was always the top greeter there at World's Gym. When I needed a T-shirt or any clothing or whatever to do photo shoots or whatever, Eddie never charged me a penny for it, man. His smile lit up the entire place. I mean, the atmosphere. I mean, we didn't have music at World's Gym. There was no music.
Yeah.
Wasn't no air condition. It was none of that craziness. It was totally different from the atmosphere from Gold's Gym. But what charged that atmosphere was the heart and the personality of Eddie Giuliani and Joe Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lee, I went to World Gym the first time, late 78. After the Mr. International competition, which is actually, I lost to Roger Kaller in the overall. And who won the overall? Joe Nazario, right?
In what year, 77?
78 Mr. International.
Yeah, it might have been Joe Nazario, yeah.
Anyhow, so I went to World Gym. Tom Platt has already left 1 month before me because we both came from Michigan to California, where I'm still here now. Wow. The thing is, I walk into World Gym and Joe Gold looked at me and said, "Kid, I'm going to tell you my honest opinion. You should have won the international."
Wow.
He said that. And I said, "Oh my God, that really lifted me up so much." He said, "Look, you're welcome in my gym. You have a lifetime membership."
Wow.
He gave me tons of clothes. He gave me all colors, or you name it. And so this is how it started. It really lifted my spirit. Joe Gold, rest in peace. Ed Giuliani, he wasn't there that one day, the second day, because, between Zabel and Eddie and Joe, it's like they have different shifts at times,
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it was so wonderful. I really felt at home, just like what Lee Haney said. It was a little different atmosphere, but it was solid atmosphere. It was a beautiful atmosphere. And I really, I hate to play favors here, between Gold and World. I've always kept going to both places, but I really did feel more comfortable at World Gym. I felt a little more comfortable. the fact that Joe Gold was very supportive, and you see them, like they're very close, like within yard from you while you're training. And so, became a close friend with Zabel and Eddie. And, I spent like at least 2-3 decades there, bro,
Wow.
Knowing these guys at this close level, whenever we had something going on by Art Zeller, he have like slideshow, he said, Samir, let's do it at your house. Eddie show up, Zabel show up. It just was wonderful camaraderie. It was good, real people. And I will never forget that. And really, I was so, bummed out losing these guys, watching Joe Gold leave us about more than, 18 years ago, approximately, if not more.
Yeah,
and then I'm gone, Zabel gone, Eddie's gone. And, I'm sure we will go eventually. I don't know when, but just remembering these people, these icons, they're like really, it's like a scar on my body. It's like it doesn't go away. I love these people. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, Rich, you said the same thing, right? You said it was like a family atmosphere at World's Gym.
It was so different, because even, Lee, if it wasn't for Lee, I was a nobody, and that was his training partner. So he brought me along, to that gym. And I got accepted, Eddie Giuliani came up, he goes, hey kid, where are you from? I said, I'm from New Jersey. He goes, Jersey, you're the Jersey kid.
He was from Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, he was from Brooklyn. So he goes, you're an East Coast guy. But he goes, if you're with Lee, you're good. You're going to train here. So, so it was great that Lee got me, in that gym, and we got to train. And then, Joe Gold, looked at me as well. But I was just Lee Haney's training partner. It wasn't till after I won
you really brought a lot of good atmosphere. I saw you, ever since I met you in San Diego, I kind of looked at you and I said, holy crap, this guy looks incredible. First time we met in San Diego, remember?
Yeah.
Bill Pearl.
But Lee and I had just like some of the most tremendous workouts. And, I was like, he always told me I was a pit bull, pushing him, and we'd be fighting in the gym, but we'd had some of the best workouts. So we would bring that, that atmosphere to World's Gym as well, both pushing each other. I remember doing back in that gym, they had that chin bar. I was doing weighted, and then the T-bar rows that were right there when you went up the steps.
Yeah.
Remember? And it was just a great atmosphere. I mean, afterwards, my Olympias that I trained for, getting second to Lee, I would spend a month living or 2 months living in,
it's all your fault because you helped Lee to get better.
That's right. He tried to kill me.
Well, we both had great synergy, because Lee helped me, get more balance, because when I was out of balance, I had big legs, my shoulders were narrow. And Lee goes, man, you got to fix your balance. You got to build up your upper body. You got to, hold off your legs a little bit. I pushed his legs. We did calves every other day, no matter what. Him and I would do donkey calf raises, seated calf raise. I mean, remember Lee? We'd start the workout with calves every time, and it was like heavy calves that we did that at Worlds or wherever we did it.
And let me just say and honestly say that your condition was a bit better than all of us.
Well, that's it was the only thing that I can do that can be better than Lee is my conditioning, but he had everything else. So I don't know.
Well, you say, Lee Haney is the heartbreaker because Lee has overwhelming physique. I mean, when Lee stand in the lineup, I don't care how ripped you and I are, man. He's just like, Lee presence was a freaky man. Shoulder to waist ratio is out of this world.
Yeah. His waist. Oh, just remember Lee Haney's waist, because I was shorter and I had a thicker waist, and I looked at his, I go, damn, I can never beat this guy's waist is this small. He's this wide.
But that atmosphere at Worlds had to be unbelievable, right? With all those superstars training there at one time. I mean, that had to be incredible.
And like we all of us said, is like, it was just like this family atmosphere. You felt at home in that gym. you went to Gold's Gym to kind of show off. And, I went to Gold's Gym. To me, I felt like a fish, a goldfish in a fishbowl being watched. You didn't feel that way when you went to World Gym. When you were in World Gym, you felt safe. You were there with amongst other guys that were doing the same thing. They were all there to train hard. And that was the atmosphere. No music. All you heard was clanging of weights.
Wow.
But it was so electrifying. When you went up those steps, you were ready to train.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. You better be ready to train. It's like Rich was saying, and as Samir was saying, it was a magic. I don't know how to explain it. The atmosphere, and everybody was expecting the best out of everybody there. You had Tom Platts and Samir and me and Rich, and golly, man, you can't explain it. And as Rich was saying, it was totally different than Gold's Gym. Not to put Gold's Gym down, but it was just something you just can't explain. It was very unique.
You are right.
100%
correct. And this is my exact feeling. I lived here all my life, literally. And, I trained at both gym for, let's say, I have been in Southern California for 40 years. And I trained at both places, but I have always felt that little more family life, at World Gym. And I had a close relationship, although, I'm close friend with Grimkowski, Ed Connors, and Tim Kimber. They were my buddy. They were very nice and supportive. But, the passion that Joe Gold and Eddie and Zabel have, because, I know Pete was competitive, but, Joe Gold, they were all actually, competitive. But just being around the old crew, they've been there from the very beginning.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I felt like, how you relate to your grandpa when you added, you feel cozy next to your grandpa. And I felt like Joe Gold, like a godfather, one of those. And they gave me a lot of advice, Samir, you got Lee Haney. You got to train harder.
And John, one of the things we talked about yesterday, and I'm sure Rich, you and Samir agree with this. We look at the longevity, although we're going to miss Eddie, and we loved him dearly, but he was an incredible example of what's possible when you take care of your health.
Yeah.
To live to be 87, and then you look at Dave Draper. I think Dave was 79, I believe.
Yeah.
Chris Dickerson was around 83.
Yeah.
Look at the longevity of these legends and how bodybuilding during that era and what it was meant to do during that era, how it was lived out in the lives of these icons. You looked at the earlier stages of bodybuilding, and all of us grew from that. You saw the level of not only getting a great physique, but the importance of health and wellness and great nutrition. All of those things were the part of the foundation of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And you've seen bodybuilding sort of move away from that. And these are the latter years whereby the athletes are not living as long. And they're not looking at overall health. It's like, live today and whatever happened tomorrow happened.
It's about tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So
you're right. I mean, listen, God bless him, Bill Pearl. He'll be 82 in about 5-6 months. He'll
92.
be
92.
92. I misspoke. Anyhow, and Bill Pearl recently had an accident. He was riding a lawnmower and it tipped over and he got injured, and thank God he's recovering right now. And who do you know at age almost 92 riding a lawnmower?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Then you got Albert Beckles. I think Albert is right at 90, 91.
Well,
90.
the method was sound. Nowadays, no disrespect to anyone, I'm a lot like you and Richard. I wish everyone the best, and we are here trying to help the newcomers, the new kids. And the thing is, sometimes rushing into making things happen overnight is something is terrible, because you didn't gain more than 5 to 10 pounds a year, if that. And I never saw Rich Gaspari weighing 280 pounds or 250. There's no need to rush. I mean, putting on 5-6 pounds of pure muscle a year should be enough. But the health should always be the top priority.
Right.
You know, you look, and that, I mean, this is about Eddie Giuliani, but now, I mean, it is a subject for us to talk about. It's like, it seems like our era, you know, right? I was the cusp of the era, you know, with Lee. And then after that era, it seems like guys that are actually 4 or 5 years younger than us are dying. Or, you know, or sick. And I think it's just because these guys were getting much bigger than what we were. I think, Lee, what was your top weight? 245 or 250?
Well, Rich, when I won the first Olympia, I was 243.
Okay.
The last Olympia, I was 254. So in the 8 years, I only gained 11 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
In 8 years.
That's,
you know.
They're putting on 20 pounds in a year now, or 15 pounds in a year.
Or more. I mean, I know some kids, I really feel sorry for them. I don't want to talk or mention their name, but I hope they get this message, because really trying to be much, much bigger, it doesn't make you look better. You know, you look at Lee Haney, he won the Olympia so many times because he was always wasted. He always had that tiny waist. Gaspari, who in my opinion could have been Mr. Olympia too, maybe missed it by a hair, thanks to Lee Haney, who always blocked his drive. But, you know, Lee Haney, I mean, listen, Gaspari, he always fought his war with quality.
Yeah.
He wasn't the most massive, but you could see he was 24 karat gold.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I mean,
what
one of the most
bodybuilding all about is beauty and keeping it healthy, and you know, it is not about being the biggest and having about 30 damn pound in your you know, as visceral fat in your midsection. This is the wrong thing, and that's why I think we are talking about it. And I know what Richard said. This is not the topic today. We are here to discuss Eddie Giuliani, but sometimes you cannot help but bring these topic. And you know, as you said, longevity is a very important. And you know, living to 87 is wonderful, or 90, but dying at 26 and 30, it's insane.
Yeah.
And this is why when people listen to Rich Gaspari and Lee Haney, because we've been there and done that, and this is all we're trying to do.
Well, I also think that the bodybuilders today, they're competing at a much older age.
Yeah, that's true.
I retired at 33, and I think, Lee, what year did you retire? 31. So we were in our early 30s, and guys are competing into their mid 40s or close to 50.
Yeah.
And they're putting their body through all this, you know, extreme measures of training. But also, you know, I just had a scare with my heart. You know, I had to get a stent put in. And you're looking at bodybuilders that are in their mid 40s that are 300 pounds. And even though it's muscle, it's still not healthy for someone in their mid 40s to be 300 pounds, whether it's fat or muscle. When I talk to a cardiologist, he goes, once you're in your 40s and 50s, you got to get leaner. You can't stay that big.
100%. 100%. You know, I hate to bring this topic. It's not, I won't say it in a derogatory way, but the new method, and I know you would agree, Richard, it's completely unsound, because you know, introducing the insulin thing into bodybuilding, which is create major health issue, because when you take the insulin, you have to load up with high glycemic carbs, and high glycemic carb can add more inflammation and problem to your health, especially as you get older. So, I mean, there are many, many things. I mean, nobody is really educating the young kids. And you know, it's very unfortunate. Some of those self-proclaimed guru, they will tell them, oh, okay, I'll get you big, I'll get you huge. But no, you got to get the people healthier when you take them, and not speed up the gun, and you know, okay, I'll get you up to 300 pounds. And then a few years later, they'll die, and they don't take any responsibility for it. That's not cool. That's not what Bill Pearl will tell you. That's not what Lee Haney will tell you. That's not what Rich Gaspari will tell you. You know, you have to rely on intelligent nutrition. You have to rely on smart training, recovery, and the whole 9 yards. You cannot just rush it. You drive 100 miles an hour, your chances of getting killed on the highway is bigger, much bigger than driving 65.
Yeah, I made a list of some of the guys who passed away and what their ages were. So Serge Nubret passed away at 73. Ed Corney was 86 when he passed away. Franco was 78. Harold Poole was 71. Larry
Franco
Scott
was
was
more than 78, Franco.
yeah, Franco was 78.
I thought it was in the early 80s.
That's
thought
what I
Franco-
saw.
Anyways, go on.
Larry Scott was 76. Sergio was 71. Dave Draper was 79. Dickerson was 82. Joe Weider was 94 when he passed. Jack LaLanne was 97. Zabo was 87. Joe Gold was 82. Steve Reeves was 74. And Reg Park was 79. So they're all in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s.
Exactly. And that just goes to show, you know, the let's say the psyche and the mindset of bodybuilding during that era.
Yeah.
You know, even the magazine showed guys jogging on the beach. And Joe Weider, as well as Dan Lurie, and as well as Perry Rader, they all stressed nutrition, athleticism, all of those things that made you a better athlete. You know, it wasn't just about putting on muscle size and getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that attracted me to bodybuilding was how Robbie looked in his clothes, how Arnold looked in his clothes. Yeah. But they looked good. They looked like superhumans, but they were beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, Ray Park, beautiful, Hercules. I mean, it was all about the beauty during that time. You know, these guys, man, you look at them, and I don't cut anybody down. I love the guys. And what I like about bodybuilding now, there's something for everybody. You have the mass monster division, but listen, a Rottweiler never outlives a Chihuahua, ever. That is not gonna happen. So if you're talking about health and longevity, you gotta think about weight. You have to think about your cardio conditioning. You have to think about good nutrition. I like to call it in and out food. You know, I never use red meat and steak and that sort of thing to develop my physique. I use eggs, whole eggs, because why? Eggs have what is called lecithin and choline, their own fat burning properties. I use fish. I never did this crazy stuff. You know, and Rich, I nicknamed Rich the Professor because he was always on top of the nutrition part of contest prep. You know, those kinds of things made a difference in the lives of athletes then and made a difference in who we are today. We feel good, we look good, we're functional, you know, and, you know, we may have a little ding here and there, but listen, we're still alive. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, that's what matters. I'm going to be running off with my grandkids tomorrow, having fun and enjoying life. You know, because at the end of the day, that's what really counts. You know, your wealth without health doesn't mean anything.
That's a good point, Lee, because I think when we were all kids and we all got into bodybuilding at a young age, we were looking at the magazines and we loved the way these guys looked. They looked like, you said, like superheroes, you know, and we wanted to look like them in and out of clothes. And they had that great physique. They didn't look unhealthy at all. They looked like they could run down the beach or do anything.
You know, John, I think some of the champions that you listed, they have passed away at early 70 to 80. And believe me, if they have even more knowledge of how to keep their system even more alkaline and do there's a lot of new scientific helpful information. Really, there are things that is helping. But overall, our method was sound. Now the method is unsound. And when we talk about it, some of those keyboard warriors get all bent out of shape. They get angry when you know, I say something about certain things. And, you know, not long ago, one of the champion passed away, and I felt very, very sad. And I blamed the situation on coaching. And so they should have been more cautious. And, this gentleman should have been still here with us today. But sometimes they do irrational stuff and they don't want to listen to the experience, So the new kids, they go crazy. They say, oh, well, Lee Haney saying that, Samir saying that. But we're only saying it to help in a very constructive, not destructive. Right. And it's fortunate nowadays, the kids have to learn from experience. And some of those self-proclaimed coaches, honestly, some of them, and without pointing one in particular, are dangerous. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you rely on major drugs that actually, it's like walking on a fine line. The chances of getting killed is huge. Blocking different hormones to peak for competition, doing certain things to get big quicker. All of these things should not be done by an average Joe. And if it's done by a professional endocrinologist, we could say not too bad. But it is bad altogether to use this kind of method. I mean, we got to get back to see how Lee Haney won the Olympia 8 times. And he's still here, sounding wonderful, as you could see. Gaspari, who has always reached the pinnacle of quality and muscularity, still here. And now we have kids who are like 26 and 28 and 30. They're passing away. And, some of the blame was blamed on some of the coaches. But you know what? I have to agree. You learn these kind of bad habits from someone that's, I never really trusted anyone right away. I had, what's his name? You remember Armand Tanny?
Yeah.
Armand Tanny was around. Zabel was around me. Eddie was around me. Joe Gold. And these people, you talk to them about what you have done. You respect their knowledge. Bill Pearl shared some good information with me. And so you have to listen to those guys that have been there and done that.
That's a good point, Samir, because I think you guys respected those guys from the eras previous to you, right? And you would always listen to them. Like you were telling me when you were posing for the Olympia, when you're at the gym, and then the guys would come and watch you, and Arnold was making comments about you,
Oh, yes, man. That, and that was incredible. Arnold saw me at the gym, probably it was about 4 weeks before the 1983 Olympia. And I mean, here I am at 243 pounds, slice and dice. And Arnold looks at me and said, Lee, how are you in this type of condition and you're 4 weeks away from the show? And I just shrugged my shoulders like, well, I don't know. I'm just, and he had this puzzled look on his face. But going into the 83 Olympia, which I got waxed by Samir, so that everybody else, I only weighed 233 pounds. So within that 4-week period, I lost over 10 pounds. Mm-hmm. I went back to the drawing board because guess what? I had notes, had stuff written down. I sat down with Fred Hatfield, great friend of mine, and me and Fred looked over all of the information. He said, Lee, your problem is you're training like a horse and eating like a bird. He said, man, all you got to do is increase your calorie intake. And guess what? 1984, I went into Olympia weighing 243 pounds.
Yeah.
Same weight.
You look great.
Yeah, because I had something to go back to. It was about the nutrition. It wasn't about no gear or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just wasn't eating enough.
Right.
That's right.
Simplicity.
And I was there to witness, him die, Lee Haney dieting. It was funny when we were, when he was carving up, we went to get this ice cream called Tofuti. You remember? We're there eating, he's there eating ice cream, and people are like, you eating ice cream before the show? He was looking at the, the calories and, that he was consuming. And he goes, I could put this in my diet right now, to get ready while I was carving up.
Yeah.
So I also, like Lee said, I was a professor reading everything, but I also watched it work on him. I'm saying, I got to do the same thing. And the thing is like, when I was getting ready for the nationals, I was trying to make a body weight because I had to be a light heavyweight. And I also over dieted for that show. And I came in the show at like 185. I should have been 198.
Yeah.
But I was so afraid of not making weight that I over dieted. But then from Lee Haney, I learned, I said, I got to eat. And I went into my first pro show, it was 215. People were like, how the hell did you get that big? You know, because I was this 185 bodybuilder. And then I went into the Night of the Champions, you know, saying that I should have beat Albert Beckles, you know, coming in second and then getting third in my first Olympia. I was 218. And people were like, how did this guy go from 188 to 218? And it was all just eating.
Yeah.
And I was over dieting.
Yeah.
And that's something that was self-taught in us. We didn't have no coaches. We learned from our bodies. Lee learned from his body. I learned from my body. And Samir learned what was best for them. And today you have just coaches and everybody has no knowledge of what to do. Just like the coach goes, here, follow this.
Yeah, yeah.
That was my problem. You know, early on, I over dieted. You got to eat. You got to eat. I mean, the thing is, you are what you eat. And the thing is, if you diet too hard, and that didn't never really work for me, over dieting, I couldn't do, you know, I did my best. You know, when I went to Germany, I was just continue to eat. And you know, one big advice, I really listened to Bill Pearl when he said, Samir, you got to listen to your body.
Yeah. You
got to eat. You know, when you're hungry, you eat. I don't like the idea of force feeding.
Yeah.
You know, force feeding. I mean, when we bulked up to gain some weight, you know, we ate a little bit more, but we ate with desire.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you guys all made a good point too, that you had, you know, back then in the atmosphere of the gym, the old school atmosphere of the gym, you would talk to other people, you know, and you would talk to bodybuilders who had more experience than you. Now it seems like everybody's so tuned into themselves, they don't really converse much with other people. You know, we didn't have like at World Gym, there was not even any music. So I'm sure you guys had great conversations with other bodybuilders. Now it's like everybody just listens to their coach. They don't listen to other bodybuilders who have more experience. Like Rich, you learned from Lee. You learned from, I mean, Arnold taught you, you know. I mean, I heard Arnold doing the commentary at the Arnold Classic the last couple of years. And man, some of the stuff he said, he was right on the money. You know, he commented on some bodybuilder that came out and I'm like, man, he's got all that knowledge, you know, he knows what he's talking about. He's not just some old bodybuilder movie star, you know. I mean, this guy knows what he's talking about. And that's where you guys would learn all your stuff.
One thing I try to do too, John, I let these younger athletes know when they're, you know, at some of the seminars and we have my certification workshops. Listen, you need to know for yourself how many grams of protein, carbohydrates, and fat that you're on.
Yeah.
You need to know how, for yourself, how your body respond to that. And so I actually got, well, how many calories are you on? Well, I got to ask my coach. Oh, wait a minute.
Right.
Oh, what's the matter with you? You know, you're paying your coach, and after your coach leave you, you're back to ground zero. You know nothing.
Right.
I said, we didn't have that. And nowadays, we had training partners. I say, Rich, how do I look today? Am I full or am I flat?
Right.
You look like you had to need a little bit, few more carbs in you. So we upped the carbs.
Yeah.
So we had that kind of camaraderie going on. And that was part of, that is what happened during the old school. You know, we would look in the mirror and say, man, you flat. You know, you look like you're bringing the bit. So you got to eat. So that's one of the dangers of having these so-called coaches, and most of them have them even more in the Creekwater, USA.
And then you know what's funny, Lee? They send them what to eat, and they have to follow exactly. You know, you don't have to eat that same meal every day. I mean, come on. There's million kind of carbohydrate. There's million kind of protein. You know, you don't have to always stay on rice. You can have your sweet potato. You can have your you have to understand basically the glycemic index. You have to understand what's a good carb, what's a bad carb, etc. I mean, you don't really, they complicate things. Say, you know what, 4 or 5 ounces. You know, I don't care. Sometimes I eat 6 or 7 ounces. I mean, yeah, it's good to have a portion that you know, like I know Richard was measuring things to the T.
Yeah.
I didn't really measure everything to the T. But you know, come on. But Lee, I mean, Richard, he timed it perfectly, and he was, I mean, honestly, he was probably the most polished on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, I feel like for me, I listen. Sometimes I may eat 35 gram protein. Sometimes I may eat 45 or 30. And so, you know, ballpark figure. And then, you know, I go back to the same thing, you know. Yeah, it's just like keep it simple. You know, if not chicken, I'll have fish. If not fish, I'll have 4 ounces of beef, 4 ounces of chicken, or I may have swordfish with 3 ounces of beef, for example. And I didn't really complicate things, whether it's a little bit of pasta or a large potato or a cup of rice. So these guys feel like, oh, if I sidetrack and change what the coach gave me, it's over with, you know. So I honestly, even up till today, I don't eat the same breakfast twice. One day I have 3 eggs. One day I have I always eat basically nowadays, you know, more healthy. I'm more like into eating for longevity. You know, I don't really care about being 230 pounds or 220 pounds. So trying to stay lean and healthy. But I'm just saying, bodybuilders today, they complicate things too much.
Yeah, yeah.
And they rely too much on drugs. Some of them, they cannot even scratch your butt without taking drugs. And that's wrong.
Right.
That's wrong. I mean, come on, you're going to tell me, oh, you have to take what they've given you nowadays. I mean, look, Sergio Oliva was huge. Berto Fox, Lee Haney. I mean, these guys were huge. And they didn't really do insulin or go crazy on GH and any of that bullshit, excuse my language. You know, it just that it's kind of, you know, I know, you know, we learn to get better, but you cannot cross the line into the unhealthy part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
There is so many unhealthy stuff being fed to the kids, and this is very unfortunate.
Yeah.
And because it's not really a rocket science.
No.
Let me ask you guys about the atmosphere at Worlds. I mean, they didn't have any music there, so I mean, I heard stories about, like, Sean Ray just put something on after Eddie died, and he was talking about when he went into World's Gym with John Brown, and he was a teenager, and he put the weight on the bench, and he said back then they had the narrow bench presses, so if you put weight on one side, the whole thing flipped over, and then he bang, and everybody looks at him, and then Eddie Giuliani comes running out of the office. He's like, "What the hell are you doing dropping weights in my gym? Get the hell out of here!" And he kicked him out of World's Gym. Sean didn't get back to World's Gym for like 6 years.
He told me this story. I laughed my ass off. You know, I mean, Joe Gold was very sensitive about these things.
Yes.
He wants you to put your weight back in place, and he don't want you to be too noisy. One day, I was training. I'm not sure if Eddie, Gaspari and Haney were there. I really train from the heart. I like to train with intensity, and I go by how I feel. But at one time, I was doing bend over row at World. I have 4 plate, maybe 4+ weight. In the old world, remember the old world? You go upstairs, the first one.
Yeah.
And so one time I was just training like a man possessed that day. I go against the wall to prepare myself for the heavy lift. I smashed the wall in my forehead just to get that energy. And Joe goes and, "Hey, whoa, what was that? What was that?"
He didn't care who you were, right? I mean, he
overall,
would kick out anybody. He'd kick out anybody out of the gym.
So Samir,
You don't
let me
have
ask
to
you
break
this.
the wall.
Samir, let me ask you this. Were you there that day that Tom Platts, Tom's was doing the set of curls, working his arms, right?
Yeah.
And he was burning out, did some burnouts, you know, curling, and all of a sudden, and after he burned, you know, finished, he just dropped the bar and it hit the floor. Boom! Was you there that day?
No,
Joe came out of the office and said, "Who in the hell dropped those weights?" And then all of the guys started snickering. I think Berta was there. Were you there, Rich?
Yeah, I was there. That's why I remember the story.
Yeah. And so Joe Gold came in, "Who in the hell dropped these weights?" So everybody started snickering, and we pointed the finger at Tom. He held up his finger and said, "It was me." Joe said, "If you ever drop those weights again, I'll kick your ass." And then he went back into the office.
Yeah, I
He's out
think
the weight world still, man.
Yeah, he didn't kick anybody out, right? He didn't care who you were.
He didn't care who you were.
You respected the weight.
I don't think he would have kicked out Arnold though.
Yeah, Arnold was the only one. Yeah.
you know, speaking of Ed Giuliani, I forgot to say this to you, Jean. Every time I walk into the gym and Eddie would go, "You need people like me." You know, the Scarface movie.
Yeah.
The best friend scene. And so I tried it many times with him. Danny Padilla, even Arnold. We all tried it. And we tried to be like Scarface. You need people like me. You need people, except I was doing it with Eddie all the time, challenging each other.
Right.
And Eddie knew the coach of Al Pacino in New York. So they were talking about it. And then before you know it, days later, I get an 8x10 from Al Pacino.
Oh, really?
Oh, my goodness.
And Eddie said, "Samir, you got an envelope here for you." I said, "From who?" Believe it or not, it's from Al Pacino.
Man.
So, you know, so Eddie Giuliani did train Al Pacino.
He did? Okay.
I guess he
okay.
became a trainer of other stars and stuff. So he was in his own right, you know, very well known. I mean, like you said, we knew him, and so many other people knew who Eddie Giuliani, you know, was. So he was an amazing character to train, you know, Al Pacino.
Yeah, when he got his Venice Beach Walk Hall of Fame, Al Pacino gave it to him in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw pictures of that.
It's that Italian personality, Gaspari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the Italian, they call me paisano because I have like similar mentality, basically.
Yeah.
My nickname in Italy was Louis. They called me Louis when I was in Italy.
Louis.
Louis. Yeah.
Yeah, and Eddie was a good competitor too. A lot of people forget that, but he was competing like at 16 years old. I did some research on him. I mean, he was doing shows in New York at 16, and then he was taking second to Danny Padilla. He was competing with Robbie at the Mr. World. So I mean, he had a good physique.
Yeah, he used to we could always look, it's a Samir, let's have a strategy. This way you can take over Lee Haney. Let's have a strategy. Samir, here's what you need to do. You need to get back and take your title from Lee Haney. He was motivating me all the time with Zabo. And you cannot stop laughing, man. When Art Zeller joined in the group,
Man.
You can't even train, between Ed Giuliani and Zabo and Art Zeller, you laugh your ass off. Your abs get more ripped.
Yeah.
Now, when you guys were getting ready for shows, would Joe Gold come out? Would he take a look at you too, or an Eddie? Would those guys look at you and tell you how you looked?
Yeah, at times, I take my shirt off and oh, Samir, you look really good. You look really good. Do this, do that, whatever. And they tell you, Samir, go lay out in the sun, get some tan. Samir, you look, it was good. That's why I'm saying earlier, you felt like you are with family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Told you the truth. They didn't bullshit you. And they can be obnoxious sometimes, but you accept it from them because they're a good buddy. They love you, So
yeah,
if you both love you, you are lucky. Because if Joe don't like you, it's not fun.
Yeah.
That's what I said. If you had to be accepted into the inner circle, and that's with Joe Gold and Eddie Giuliani and Zabo. So I was fortunate to get into that inner circle. Everybody else, even big names like we talked about earlier, Sean Ray never went back to World's Gym again after that encounter.
Right.
Never wanted to go there.
Hey, Rich just scared him away, Served him right though. I saw it when he put that piece up. I put a comment. I said, "Serve you right. You're trying to defy the law of gravity." Everybody would, take
back. But John told me
leave the other one empty. Good gracious,
That's for Sean. I just saw Sean a couple weeks ago. We would have lunch together. And we talk about these things. Sean was so passionate. When he told me the story about World Gym, I laughed my butt off. I'm like, it was just so excited to be there.
Yeah.
And what a day. I mean, in all his career, maybe he didn't drop the weight like that.
I love hearing stories like that though, because back then in the 80s or 70s, I mean, those old school bodybuilders, those old school gym owners, they didn't put up with any shit. They kick people out. They won't never do that now. Everything's PC now, but I mean, back then, if you didn't like it their way, you were out.
Vince Gironda was like that.
Yeah.
Oh, Vince Gironda was feisty like you can't imagine.
And George Turner, right? Samir, you trained at George Turner's gym. Right?
Yeah, George was cool. I got along with George too. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
He was old schooler, but he can get crazy at times.
Yeah.
Now, how about Eiferman too? Did you train him?
I met George too in Venice Beach. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Did you meet him? Did you meet Eiferman?
Yes.
I met him.
I
met him when I won Mr. Universe because he was living. It was in Vegas. He was living in Vegas.
Yeah, that's right.
John Grimmick or George Eiferman?
George Eiferman.
Yeah.
Did you meet Grimmick?
I don't think I ever met. I
met him on the elevator. That was incredible.
Did you meet Steve Reeves?
I never met Steve Reeves either.
No,
yeah.
I didn't either.
Well, that's why, because I'm consistent in Southern California. I bump into these people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You was with him, Samir. You was with him.
I was there. I mean, I started here at 78, and luckily I came here right in the nick of time. I witnessed them all, from Bill Purr to Reg Park visiting, trained with Serge Nubret, met Steve Reeves twice, and you know all of them. You name it, from Dave John to you were talking George Eiferman. The only one guy that I didn't meet is Clancy Ross.
Yeah.
Yes.
The only guy, but he's also from Southern California. And I met Chet Yorton. You know Chet Yorton?
Yeah.
Chet Yorton actually he beat Arnold in one of the contests early on.
Yeah, Universe.
I'm a good friend with his daughter and her husband, which is actually, they started the Quest Nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, now they have legendary nutrition. Very wonderful people. And so I walked one time, Chet Yorton walked into my store. I had a health food store back in Woodland Hills years ago. And he looked and I said, "Hi, Chet." He was like so excited. Said, "Oh my God, you knew who I am?" And I know my history. I am so passionate about bodybuilding. When I was in England, I went and I met Oscar State.
Oh my goodness.
Oscar Heidenstam.
Oh,
the one
who's the founder of the NABA.
Yeah.
And I drove all the way to York, Pennsylvania to meet John Grimmick.
Wow.
Because I have so much love for the older school. I really respected them. And John Grimmick, he said, "Samir, when is your next show?" I said, "I'm going to compete in Worcester." I was suspended by the FBB at the time. So I competed at that competition with Jeff King and Kawak.
Yeah.
And John Grimmick came in. John Grimmick, Dave Draper, Mike Menser, Serge Nubret, they all showed up.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't an IFBB show. But anyway, it's good to talk about all these things right now.
Yeah.
It's incredible history, Samir. And, I want to commend you, John, for what you're doing as far as reserving the history of some of the greatest legends in our sport. Because as we were talking earlier, John, it's a tragedy that in our sport, we don't celebrate and we don't make sure that the, secure documentation of who and what and when they existed. And when you talk about boxing, everybody knows Muhammad Ali. When you talk about basketball, everybody knows Larry Bird or Michael Jordan. You talk
when
about,
you talk about bodybuilding, everyone knows who's Lee Haney.
Well, Samir, something.
Yeah.
And
you know what? I have to say it.
I was on the elevator. Listen, I was on the elevator.
Sorry to cut you.
Partners, we were going to one of the shows, and he said to this young man, young bodybuilder, teenager in the show, he said, "Do you know who won the 8-time Mr. Olympia?" And this young man said, "No, I don't." And he said, "Well, guess what? He's standing behind you. His name is Lee Haney." So that's one of the tragedies of our sport.
Yeah.
We don't observe the history of it. And that's what I'm saying to John, thank you, John, for doing what you do. And John is now in works of creating a document that will have the history of our sport, how it began, the legends of the sport, all of that. John is working on that. And John, I appreciate your attention to that, because that's something that we badly need.
Lee Haney, sorry to cut you guys. Lee Haney, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you know me, I say it like it is. Lee Haney is one of my absolute favorite in the sport of bodybuilding, because no one is more humble. No one is nicer. You too nice too, Richard. But I mean, I have voted for Lee Haney as my numero uno overall man. He really deserves the best. You know, you both do. Honestly, I have a great memory. I remember when I won the '83 Olympia, and Lee Haney and Shirley came over to my place in Marina del Rey. We went out to eat, and we were like, we're not even rival. We were like buddy. And Lee and I listened to some of the posing music, and Lee picked up one of the posing music from me. And and he went on to win 8 Olympia in a row. And, you know, I love him, even though he's right here in my face. He's one of my favorite people, really. You deserve a special trophy, Lee Haney. 8 Mr. Olympia, 1 special trophy from me as the nice guy in the business.
And I also feel that way, because, you know, people say, who's the greatest bodybuilder? Lee Haney won 8 Olympias and was retired in 31.
Yeah.
It's just, and you're looking, and no, you know, you look at Ronnie Coleman, he did the 8 Olympias, and was a great bodybuilder, but still, Lee Haney and his last Olympia was better than his first Olympia. And it was controversial with the other guys who won multiple Olympias that their last Olympia was their best Olympia. Yeah, and on another note, what we talked about, today's generation does not look at history. Our generation looked at history like you guys were talking. Like, I knew, you know, John Grimmick. I read about Clancy Ross. I read about all these guys that were 30 years, 40 years before me. Yeah. And I looked at the history of bodybuilding. You talk to bodybuilders, young kids today in their teens. I was with the same thing, the same experience. I was with this bodybuilder, looked great. He was from Egypt. So I go, wow, you look amazing. He goes, I bet your hero is Muhammad Makawe. And the kid goes, who's Muhammad Makawe? I said, you're from Egypt and you don't know. He was 21 years old. He had a great physique, Lee and Samir. This kid looked amazing. He was a classic bodybuilder, but he didn't know who Muhammad Makawe was. And I'm like, you don't know Muhammad? I mean, I know. And they just don't keep, history.
I'm gonna give you a title for you. You're definitely one of the most passionate and real champion that actually did everything from the heart. And I give you hopefully one day I'll be able to do something where I will have a special present, because Rich Gaspari is one champion that actually gone very, very far for what he had.
Yes.
Was real for making a product, was real quality for being real. And this is really what I appreciate about you too, Richard. Really, you're one of the most passionate.
You two guys had way better genetics to me. So I had to do every trick in the book.
This is your downside. This is your downside.
Yeah. So to get close to you guys, I had to do everything. You know, when I looked at bodybuilding and people told me I would never go far, I knew in my mind, I said, I'm going to go as far as I could go, because I'm not going to listen to the naysayers. And I was able to get, you know, to the top, getting 3 times second to one of the, you know, the greatest bodybuilders, and winning the Arnold Classic, to me was something that it was more this part of me than my body that got me to do that, you know, and I pushed my body to the limits, you know, and I educated myself on nutrition, you know, training, learning from guys like Lee Haney and Samir and all these guys are what made me be, you know, one of the, to me, I'm humble to say, am I one of the greats, but it's cool to be there with these guys that, you know, they said Rich wouldn't go nowhere, and I was still able to be there. So
he went everywhere. Richard, you went everywhere. I mean, really, I have to tell you right now, in front of the whole world, that I was one a big fan of your quality. The way you appeared on stage, bro, was like, it's like incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, what you did and what you have is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Seriously. And you know, really, you're worthy of a Mr. Olympia too. No, don't just, I'm just not
Well,
blowing
if Lee Haney wasn't around, I'd have 3 Mr. Olympias.
The only problem,
you know what the difference was? You know what the difference was between me and Rich?
Lee Haney, listen, Lee.
No, I want to hear what Lee has to say.
Gaspari is a very smart guy, but sometimes when you're too smart, it could backfire because he put a lot of smart in pushing and enhancing Lee Haney's physique that it backfired. That he have to surpass.
He made me better. But you know what? I look at, you know, when I look at Rich, and Rich he's my family.
Yes.
His mom, his dad, his brothers, they're family.
I know
I
that.
had a chance to meet his mother and his father. And when you look at the genetic blueprints, I mean, you saw that Italian blood, tough, his dad, tough as nails, his mom, this little beautiful Italian mother, but you didn't see the genetics. Not like me. My mom was like almost 6 foot tall. My dad was almost 6 foot tall. My mom weighed about, 185 pounds. My dad was like 215. So I had all of the genetic advantages.
Yeah.
And you look at Rich, he took the science of bodybuilding, the science of nutrition. Then he took the determination of that Italian mindset. He wouldn't have said no for an answer and went beyond anybody, you know, other than like a Tom Platz. Tom was the same way.
Yeah.
He had zero genetics and freaked the world out.
Very unfortunate. Lee
But he
Haney.
wasn't Italian like
Wait,
Rich.
come on, Lee. Lee, you the heartbreaker, okay? You are also mean.
Oh man.
Look, Labrada is awesome, great bodybuilder, beautiful body. But you know, the thing is, Haney, and again, I see that you were overwhelmingly huge in that your shoulders to weight ratio. And I remember when Dorian tried to compete with you one time, and really, I look at the photo because your shoulders to waist, you know, even Dorian was pretty good even at that time, but he actually improved after that. But when he went face to face with you, your shoulders to waist ratio really, you took him out of the picture that time. You know, the Dorian is Mr. Olympia, what, 6 time or 4 time? I'm not 100% sure.
6 times.
6 times.
6? Yeah. I mean, look, Lee Haney won the Olympia 8 times for a reason. You know, he won it because,
did you guys ever see this picture of Arnold? Can you see it?
yeah. Wow.
I don't know if you can see it, but I think he was like 16 years
Arnold.
old here. He was like really skinny. Like I couldn't believe Arnold looked like that at one time, you know? Well, before we wrap up, do you guys have any final thoughts on Eddie Giuliani, since we want to do a little tribute to him on this podcast?
I hope one day, like Lee says, maybe we should do some get together here in Southern California to honor champion. Like, Eddie Giuliani was one of the people that really energized me. It felt really, really cool around him and Zabo and Joe Gold. I mean, we need to do honoring for all of these guys at once. I think we should contact John Balick. We should contact John Balick and maybe do something together on Venice Beach or, bring these guys. We definitely should do that.
That'd be a great idea. How about you, Rich?
I love that. You know, as Samir was saying, you couldn't get better than those awesome, beautiful icons. You know, Joe Gold, Ed Giuliano, Zabo, Artie Zeller, man, they were magic, and they impacted the lives of we can't even count how many people who came within their circle that they loved.
And remember, Lee Haney, when you came to Southern California, and then Rich Gaspari came with you after, Art Zeller has a lot. He's done so much for the sport. He doesn't get the the recognition he deserved, because, you know, really, he made Muscle and Fitness, the famous magazine that I bought the first time. His great photography, he is really from within. I mean, look, I'm like, again, I say I'm really lucky and honored that I got to know all these guys, from Zeller to Gold to Bill Pearl, Reg Park. And then, you know, and I was really also happy to maintain this awesome relationship with Lee Haney and Rich Gaspari, which I consider really from the heart a true champion, and really love you guys. And thanks for Jean to bringing us all together on a day like that. So thank you, John.
I want to say, you know, like with Eddie, you know, he was impressionable to me as a young guy, and I hope to do the same thing for the younger generation of bodybuilders coming up. I mean, we try through what we do through social media. You know, I try to, you know, I have you seen lately my posts? I'm trying to be a little bit more, you know, outgoing, so, you know, young kids accept who I am. I'm not just some old conservative bodybuilder.
You're on TikTok now.
but you know, it's you know, what Eddie gave back is like, you know, it's just that era I was so impressed with, you know, to know Eddie Giuliani, Joe Gold, you mentioned Artie Zeller. I had the honor to be, you know, photographed by Artie Zeller many times, every time I went to California, and those days will be missed. And to see, you know, Eddie is, I guess, the last of those guys that are now gone. You know, and now it's, I guess it's us. We're the guys left.
Well, you know, Richard, you're also fortunate, like me. You came down here too and hang out with these people, and you saw everything up close and personal. You know, I remember, you know, ever since the day I met you in San Diego, was it probably what, around 80? What year was that, Richard?
I was already pro.
You were actually an amateur still.
Probably was
San Diego.
It was 83.
Wasn't 83? Yes.
83.
And you know, ever since, man, you were like going like that, like upward, and join the team, the good people. Anyway, it's wonderful having this conversation with you guys. And again, thank you, Jean, for bringing us all together. And
thank you guys for taking time out of your day to do this.
And Eddie's looking down at us, smiling at us right now.
That's right.
His joke was Art Zeller in heaven right now.
That's right. I think him and Joe Gold will be ahead of the gym once we get to heaven, you know.
Yeah, that's right. They'll be right there.
They got my vote. Put the weights up.
It's no different up here than it was down there.
Hey, I love you guys. I love you. I love you. I love you. My brothers. Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Love you too, Richard. Love you too, Lee. Thank you so much again, John. God bless you. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks, Samir. Thanks, Rich. And thanks, Lee. Thanks for joining me on the show again. And we'll see you guys again soon, hopefully.
Take care, Mr. Awesome.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Rich.